Today is a rather special day because what I have with me is possibly India's first super EV. I'm not sure if that's an actual term yet, but it is absolutely fitting for what's standing right here. It is of course the Audi RS e-tron GT, but there is a bit of an issue straight off. You see, I have only a limited amount of kilometers to drive this car, and instead of crying and whining about it, I'm going to use all of them to see if it feels like a proper RS. And the only way to do that is to drive it like an RS should be driven.
Circles in my mind, circles in my mind, circles in my mind, circles in my mind. What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? I can't take this.
And to be completely honest, it wasn't long before it showed me its true colors. This is probably one of the easiest reviews of any car that I've done because it has taken no more than 15 minutes of driving this car for it to convince me that it is in fact a proper RS. It has that manic acceleration, the sense of speed from down here is incredible, so there is no reason to doubt that this is Audi's most powerful car that they have ever produced. Not the most powerful EV, the most powerful car, which means it has defeated the RS6, the RS7, even the R8 V10. And boy does it show, because you flex your right foot and immediately this thing hurls you ahead. At your disposal is 646 horsepower and 830 Nm, all of which of course is available instantly. Now of course, being the most powerful Audi ever produced, this thing has quite the numbers. 0 to 100 is claimed to be at 3.3 seconds, but from whatever runs I've done today, it feels a tad faster, maybe just a shade under that number. But it is what you feel when you're doing that run, because I've been testing cars for Autocar India for a while now, and in that phase I have tested plenty of cars that do these sort of numbers. 0 to 100 in 4 seconds, 3.8 seconds, 3.5 seconds, but nothing, and I mean nothing, has ever felt like this. It is such a shock to the system when you launch this. You do not expect it at all, and it sort of takes a while before you can compute what is happening. And I'll tell you why it feels different, because if you're in a petrol powered car that has the same number for 0 to 100, you sort of anticipate it, you sort of somewhere know that it is going to happen. Because as you're sitting on the line, you have launch control engaged, the revs climb up, the engine is roaring, and as you lift off, initially there is that little bit of hesitance, there is that little bit of time that you get to sort of know what's going to happen. It is as though someone is going to pull you really strong, you sort of know what's happening. With this though, it's like someone is going to shove you from the back. You have no idea it's about to happen. When it does happen, you are not prepared at all. And that is why it is so exciting every time you launch this. Here is a good example when it shocked me. Alright, it's not going to take too long. It's only going to take 3.3 seconds actually. So what you do is very simple. You engage the sort of acceleration measurement that you get inbuilt on the Audi. 0 to 100, select that. Okay, that's on. Drive in dynamic, that also lowers the car down and everything sort of amps up. The motor now has full power. Foot on the brake, foot on the accelerator, build up the boost, and oh my god. Yeah, okay. There we go. There we go. 3.2 seconds. So definitely this thing has the bragging rights. Oh my god, you are not prepared. Trust me, no matter what car you've driven, that instant bit, like I said, from 0 to the first 50 meters is absolutely shocking. You will just not know what hit you, and after that this thing keeps on pulling, and it pulls hard. I mean, the most powerful Audi ever produced? Definitely. I am not doubting this. Now all that colossal power and torque comes from a 93 kilowatt hour battery that powers two motors, one on the front axle, one on the rear axle. Of course, it also gets a 2-speed transmission And what that means basically is that it has the first gear, which is really short, and that helps you get off the line faster. But as you get to triple digit speeds, the second gear kicks in for a more relaxed cruise setting. It is really very seamless. You'll never really notice it work, but it does help that much. The big battery also helps it get a claimed range of 481 kilometers, but the realistic number hovers around the 340 kilometer mark. Charging options for a top-up from 5 to 80% range from a 11 kilowatt AC charger that takes 9 hours 30 minutes, a 22 kilowatt AC charger that takes 5 hours 15 minutes, a 50 kilowatt DC charger that takes 1 hour 30 minutes, and if you manage to find one, a 270 kilowatt DC charger that takes just 22.5 minutes. Now the other big thing on an EV is the regen. Of course the RS e-tron also gets that, 3 modes, 3 levels in fact, and you control that by using these paddle shifters. These are not for the 2-speed gearbox, by the way. These things control the level of regen, and even at the strongest level it's not really too strong, so you can sort of be in control most of the time. You don't really have to struggle, it doesn't sort of surprise you, and it is quite gradual, so that's not a bad thing as well. However, while the regen is strong enough to slow down the car, coming to a complete stop is also something the RS excels in. The brake calipers coated in tungsten carbide offer a strong bite and help with heat dissipation, reduced wear, and also prevent excess brake dust. If the organs in your body have been thrown at the back after the manic acceleration, the brakes ought to get them back in position or even a bit further. That said, it is nowhere near as savage as the acceleration. What also helps that acceleration is the e-quattro system. Now of course, quattro is a fabled word in the Audi book, and with this one it is the best of the best. It is a lot faster than the standard system of course, and what it does is basically figure out where the power and torque needs to go. It is extremely responsive and you never sort of struggle for grip. Throw it in a corner and this thing will just grab. It is absolutely fantastic the way this thing handles. And speaking of handling, it also has an electromechanical steering wheel, which means you have a bit more feel and feedback depending on the speed, depending on the drive mode you're in, and at low speeds it is light and very convenient to use in the city. But of course this is an RS, you do not use it conveniently, it is about having fun, and that is in plenty. But if you want even more control in the corners, the RS e-tron GT also has rear wheel steering in the options list. And trust me, it is worth buying because on a stretch of twisties like these, it makes a world of a difference. It might not seem like it moves around a lot, the rear wheels, but it definitely helps when you have a tight set of corners, because this is a big boy. It is not a small car, the RS e-tron, and it is also heavy as well because it weighs over 2 tons. And with all that power, you better have all the handling help that you can get. So the rear wheel steering is an option I would highly recommend. However, what isn't on the options list is the oral drama you get with an RS. Now while the performance is very exciting, what is a bit of a downer is the missing exhaust. Of course it's an electric car, it was never supposed to get one, but because it's an RS, you miss that big throaty V8, you miss the raspy V6, you miss those crackles and pops, you don't really get excited when you see a tunnel, and that will take some time to get used to, because with this they have sort of used a synthesized sound. It mimics sort of a spaceship every time you put your foot down, especially in dynamic. You hear this really sci-fi theme. I don't know if you can hear it, but it is very much there. However, it is not like an engine. You don't get that soul-touching feel that you get from a V8 screaming at redline. But I guess that is the price to pay for having absolutely zero emissions and some incredible performance. Now, while you will miss the crackles and pops, what you will appreciate is the ride quality. What the RS e-tron also gets is adaptive air suspension, and what that means is you can set the car up according to your liking. If you have a lovely stretch of road, which I have today, I can put it in dynamic, the suspension sort of firms up, you get some fantastic body control, the car is very planted in corners, but when the road gets tough, you can switch back to comfort. The suspension then changes its characteristics again, it is a lot more soft, it cushions all these bumps, and it is really relaxing as well. It is just such a comfortable car to drive on a daily basis, and that is one quality that is unlike an RS, because the petrol models are all very, very firm. You just cannot get away with it. The RS7, the RS5 even though they are relatively comfortable given their competition, this one is a step up from that. And bear in mind, it is comfortable despite having 20-inch wheels. They definitely look sharp and they look big. They look a bit worryingly big, but trust me, they are not an issue at all.
That said, the one big issue with low-slung cars such as this one is ground clearance.
Now, of course, electric cars are famous for having the battery pack in the floor, and that sort of reduces the ground clearance. But since the RS e-tron gets adaptive suspension, you get those extra few centimeters that help it over speed breakers. Of course, some large bumps will have to be carefully crossed, but apart from that, it is very much usable.
And since it is so usable, it can very much be your daily driver.
It is just so user-friendly. It has all the features. I mean, just look at this cabin. It is fantastically well spec'd. It is top of the line stuff. You get a virtual cockpit, you get this lovely touchscreen, and thankfully you don't get the dual screen setup that you see on high-end Audis. That means you have tactile buttons for your HVAC, and that is a big plus. You don't have to fiddle around, you don't have to pull over and look into the menus and sub-menus. It is very, very convenient.
However, you have access to plenty of information should you choose to pull over and geek out. The virtual cockpit is hugely customizable. You can change the dials, have tons of information on your battery capacity, regen, performance, and there are plenty of sporty touches as well. The steering wheel wrapped in Alcantara, the carbon fiber accents on the dashboard, red stitching with red seat belts, sports seats with fantastic support, heating and ventilation, and even massaging. And of course, the incredible glass roof. A carbon fiber roof is an optional extra, but I think this looks so much better. In terms of kit, there really is a lot on offer, and you surely get what you would expect in a car costing north of 2 crore rupees.
Now, of course, with all these goodies here, you do not want to leave this seat. But on those rare occasions you find yourself in the back, I mean, I'm not really sure you will be there. It's probably for your friends and your family. Somebody but you is going to sit in the back. And those people will not really struggle for room because you get a decent knee room there. Seats are nice and comfortable as well. You get your own climate control. Of course, headroom can be a bit of an issue if you're over 6 feet because the roofline is tapering quite sharply. And I mean, I'm not really going to sit in the back because, like I said, I have limited kilometers and I am not wasting it being driven around in an RS.
In terms of practicality, the 405-litre boot space might seem enough, along with an extra 85 litres in the front ahead. However, most of the boot will be taken up by the spare wheel if you choose to opt for one, and most of the frunk is robbed by the huge charging cable suitcase.
Now, underneath all this tech and fancy wizardry, the RS e-tron is based on the same platform as the Porsche Taycan, and that car has quite the reputation. But I think, in my personal view, this thing looks better because underneath, if they both are the same battery packs, the same sort of performance, it all boils down to which one you like in terms of looks. And I think personally this one looks a bit better. Of course, Porsche fans will disagree. The comment section can go blazing right now, but I think I'm going to stand my ground. The RS e-tron looks better than the Porsche Taycan.
The RS e-tron GT has a lot of cues from the standard version we drove not too long ago. In fact, put them side by side, and apart from the badging, you will not be able to tell them apart. A clue is to look for blacked out badges, as the standard car gets them finished in chrome. At the front, it gets LED matrix headlamps as standard, the bumpers are sporty and sculpted for perfect aerodynamics, and it also gets vents in the front that channel air to the brakes and through the side of the car. The bonnet has a large indent that looks sharp and dynamic, and no matter the paint shade, it will turn heads and bring out the cameras everywhere. Over to the side, the coupe-like roofline is the highlight. It is responsible for the svelte look of the RS along with the 20-inch wheels that look stunning. The rear is where you'd notice the RS badge and the beautiful long LED light bar that sits beneath the retractable spoiler. Safe to say that there just isn't an angle on the RS that won't excite the 8-year-old in you.
This thing is such a riot. I mean, you cannot drive it slow. I'm sorry. I am definitely being under the speed limit right now, but wherever I get a chance, you just flex your right foot even by half and it just hurls ahead.
Come to think of it, there isn't much that you can point out against the RS e-tron GT. Priced at 2.05 crore rupees, it is 25 lakh rupees more than the standard car. However, for the extra you are shelling out, you get plenty of kit as standard, a car that is much faster, and the bragging rights of the most powerful car in the Audi stable. It has the go, it has the show, and it is safe to say that Audi has made yet another RS that is properly violent. Only this time, it is also silent.